How's it going? Thanks for tuning in. I just wanted to make this quick video on how to insure a luxury vehicle, some things that some people do maybe get wrong or overthink. At the end of the day, an auto insurance policy for a luxury vehicle is going to be very, very similar to how a standard auto insurance policy operates. You're going to be looking at very similar coverages, whether it is the liability portion, the PIP portion here in Michigan, your personal injury protection insurance, having uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. These are all going to be very, very similar, but with some obviously some nuances. So, first, again, the bodily injury liability coverage is going to matter a lot for you in these situations because you are driving a luxury vehicle. Unfortunately, in today's world, you are maybe seen as a target. If you get into a minor fender bender, the person that you get into an accident with, there might be a higher probability, a higher chance that they call a personal injury attorney and decide to sue you because of that incident. So that's something to note. The minimum liability coverage that we always recommend, and especially when you are insuring a luxury vehicle, $250,000 per person and $500,000 per accident. You might want to consider higher limits, maybe a $500,000 combined single limit, or $500,000 per person, $500,000 per accident. And in these situations, if you have a luxury car, if you're driving a luxury car, you're probably higher net worth. It is almost, in my opinion, it should be a requirement that you have an umbrella policy for additional liability coverage. It's personal preference. But again, when you are driving these luxury vehicles, if you get into an accident, unfortunately, there's a higher chance that you do get sued. So I always recommend to make sure that your liability coverage is dialed in and that you have the right limits for that. And then a minor thing is to make sure, not a minor thing, but to make sure that you have your uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage limit set at the same as your bodily injury liability. In Michigan, we do have a high rate of uninsured drivers, and this can be an overlooked coverage or maybe a coverage that people don't match to their bodily injury liability. So those are two very important things to note. And then with your PIP coverage, just like with any other auto policy here in Michigan, always make sure that you have unlimited, in my opinion, because unlimited truly does mean unlimited, no cap to your medical expenses if you are ever injured in an accident. As a reminder, your PIP coverage on your auto insurance is what pays for medical expenses after injuries after an auto accident, not your health insurance. So again, always a good reminder. Now, the most expensive part of an auto policy, almost across the board nowadays, but especially for luxury vehicles, is going to be your collision coverage. And the reason is simple. The repair costs, the replacement costs for vehicles continue to go up, right? And especially when you are looking at luxury vehicles and insuring them, the repair costs are higher, right? There's more specialized labor, and just the parts cost more. Everything that goes into repairing and replacing a luxury vehicle simply costs more. So the collision coverage on your auto policy is going to reflect that. Your comprehensive coverage will, and as a reminder, comprehensive will be things like fire, theft, vandalism. If you hit a deer, that's where comprehensive coverage comes into play. And then collision is obviously if you get into an accident with another vehicle or you hit another object. Comprehensive will be more expensive for a luxury vehicle, but not quite, usually not quite as high as collision. But that will be the most expensive part of the policy, almost always guaranteed. Excuse me. Now, something I want to get into is the valuation for your vehicle. There are typically two ways that you can have these vehicles valued on the policy. So again, if you are ever in an accident, basically how much you would get for that vehicle if it were totaled. There is the standard way that a vehicle is valued on a typical auto policy, which is actual cash value. This takes the replacement cost of the vehicle minus depreciation. And everyone knows that after you drive a car off the lot, it immediately depreciates. Now, not every time. Some cars obviously retain their value more than others, but for the most part, as soon as you drive that car off the lot, it depreciates. So on a typical auto insurance policy, the car is valued on an actual cash value basis. A lot of times, they do offer what is called maybe agreed value coverage, or they offer a stated amount that you can value a vehicle at. This is very common with a lot of insurance companies that do insure luxury vehicles. So this is always something that I want to make sure is accurate if you are insuring a luxury vehicle. If you want it insured for a specific amount, make sure that is known. Some companies will require certain, maybe an appraisal or certain documentation showing that that vehicle is actually worth that much before providing that coverage. So that is something important to note, that if you do want your vehicle insured for a specific amount, to make sure that you let your agent, let the insurance company know, and that it is as accurate as possible. They might require a certain appraisal within a certain amount of time, whatever it may be, but that is something important to know. Now, as far as important endorsements that are worth looking into, one is going to be, it'll depend on the insurance company what exactly it might be called, but it might be OEM parts replacement cost, or OEM parts plus, which just means original equipment manufacturer. So if you are ever in an accident or the vehicle's damaged, they are using the original manufacturer's parts to repair or replace your vehicle, not aftermarket or whatever it may be. They are using the specific manufacturer's parts to repair your vehicle. So that's an important endorsement that I always like to mention. Some people maybe leave that off or don't always talk about it. And then the next one is going to be loan gap coverage or lease gap coverage. This is just like loan or lease gap coverage on a regular auto insurance policy. Again, as soon as you drive that car off the lot, it depreciates. If you have a loan or any sort of financing on the vehicle, there is that gap. So let's say, a month later, the car's totaled and you still owe a certain amount on your loan for that car. But if you don't have that loan gap coverage, or maybe the stated amount coverage that you, if you don't have that agreed value amount on your policy, there might be a gap in what you get from the insurance company to replace your vehicle and what you owe on the loan. So this is where that loan gap coverage would come in. Pretty important to have. And then as far as pricing for these policies, for these luxury cars, it's going to vary widely, just like with regular auto insurance. It's going to depend on your driving record, how many claims you've had in the past, your location, your zip code, your insurance score. There are so many factors that all of these insurance companies take into account when determining rates, that it's going to vary widely, right? The insurance rate that you get maybe for your BMW versus what your friend gets for his Bentley, or what somebody else gets for their Mercedes, is going to vary widely between one insurance company to another. So it is important to work with a company that does maybe not even specialize in higher end or luxury vehicles, but an agent that has access to multiple markets that does specialize in them. For a lot of these, certain carriers won't even underwrite them, but for the most part, when you have these luxury vehicles, companies like Pure, Chubb, Cincinnati, Berkeley One, these are more high net worth carriers, but then there are also insurance companies here in Michigan like Auto Owners that will underwrite more higher end, exotic luxury cars. Again, it will depend on each insurance company and how they rate these vehicles. But working with even a company like Haggerty, sometimes they can be a great option for luxury vehicles. They're more of a classic or collectible car company, but they can be another great option for luxury vehicles as well. So overall, remember that the basics of auto insurance are going to transfer over no matter what vehicle you're insuring. But again, if you do have a luxury vehicle and you're getting auto insurance and you're reviewing your policies, make sure your liability coverage limits are enough, and make sure that the value of your vehicle is appropriate and what you would want it insured for. So those are really the two main points. Everything else, for the most part, is going to be very similar to a regular auto insurance policy. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions about insurance in general, auto insurance specifically, or you want help, I'm an independent agent in Michigan. I would love the opportunity to work with you. Again, any questions, feel free to reach out. All my info should be below. But I appreciate you watching, and look forward to hearing from you and working with you if the opportunity presents itself. Thanks a lot.